He is a professor at Fayetteville State University. He is chair.
Bye-bye.
He is the chair for Elizabeth City State University's foundation. Dr. Eley holds a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Elizabeth City State University, a master's degree in applied mathematics education from North Carolina State University, and a PhD in mathematics education. I invited Dr. Peter Elliott to lead this session today to share with us how we can use the data that we have to drive meaningful instruction. So with that said, I will turn it over to Dr. Peter Elliott. He will be recording this session because this session is good for all. I know I've required mathematics teachers to come, but it is something that's good for all teachers.
All right, good morning. Can everyone hear me well? All right, so I don't know about you, it's 2021, it's a new year, and I'm excited about the opportunities that this year is going to bring forward, and trying to be as optimistic as possible as many of you all, because we're teachers and that's what we do, and we bring the joy and we bring the bubbly and when everybody else doesn't have it. So hopefully I'll be able to inspire you today and also give you some insight and some instruction on some of the things that you can do to recognize patterns in data and recognize some of the different things that may be going on with your students based on the data that you have. So with that, I have a PowerPoint presentation that I will go through because I want to make sure that you are clear and understand, and that's me being a teacher myself, where the data came from, how we get there, and how we're going to use it to develop what we need to do, and this model, what we call continuous improvement in education. You probably heard that buzzword one or two times, continuous improvement. So then we'll go from there to Excel, and Jessica has sent me some sample data, and I'm going to use this to go through, and I'm going to use one technique with you today because we only have this hour. I'm going to use some pivot tables with you and show you how you use this pivot tables to get some visualization based on some of the things that you already have. I know you don't have some of the sophisticated tools like Tableau or some of the SAP stuff, but Excel is pretty readily accessible to most people, or they can use the Google platform to do so. So therefore, I want you to be able to use the data you have to be able to do some of the basic things to be able to help your students where you are. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, my assumption is that everyone can see my screen. All right, so, okay, I got the thumbs up. So data connections, of course, she's already told you that my name is Dr. Peter Elliott. I'm this, the professor of mathematics education at Fayetteville State University. And I also have the pleasure of being the UNC Teacher of the Year for the UNC system. So I'm grateful that my work has been acknowledged by that way by my colleagues and also the UNC Board of Governors. All right, so I'm gonna go right into this. See if they let me move here. Okay, all right, here we go. Let's go. All right, so data. Let's talk about data. How, why, and what. All right. So the how do we get here? Where do we get to this point now that we're being asked to have all this data and being able to look at these different things? Number one, they started with the No Child Left Behind Act. I know a lot of you, some people cringe when they hear that, some people cheer when they hear that, but that act itself brought in all this point where we start to collect all this data over time. So data. And it got to a point, well, what do we do with this data? Why? Why all this data? Simple, school effectiveness and accountability. There were many people who were in the space that didn't believe teachers were doing what they supposed to be doing. We know that teachers are awesome. You have so many different things that you're dealing with. You're dealing with students who come to you with all kinds of things that they're already behind on. They come with personal issues. They come with things that you thought they should know when it came to the grade level and they don't know. So they come to you behind, sometimes multiple years behind. And you've done such a terrific job to bring them from 1A to 1B, where they actually asked you at that grade level to have them at C. So these different things, the reason this came about was because they wanted more accountability in education. So with this came data, and now we're going to the part that we have data science, and now data drives everything. You know, it's just like when you get on Facebook or you get on Amazon and you just saying you're looking for a particular hairbrush, and now everything you click on, you go to to the web, everything you click on is coming up with all these hairbrushes all of a sudden. That is them tracking you with this data based on your preferences and them trying to predict where you're going. So now we have all those different models. Now, what now? What now we're looking at, I got the car, but you know what they did? They forgot to give us the keys. They didn't teach us how to drive this car. So, it's one thing to have a car. You remember, I don't know about you, when you turn 16, some students were fortunate enough to have parents that had given them a car, or they got a car passed down to them. But what good is the car if you can't drive it? What good is the car if you can't go anywhere? So a lot of times with teachers have not been trained to be data analytics, and they have not been trained to go in there and pull out and tease out all these things. So now we do this through continuing education, through this part of you getting CEUs and slowly transforming you to be able to, yes, we're putting something else on your boat, but this is going to help you to be a more effective teacher. This is going to help you pinpoint areas where students are already having problems, and you can focus your time in those areas. Now, that's nice if every district is able to afford people to come in to do all this stuff for them and hand it to them. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of our rural counties, like most of the areas that you all are in, they do not have that. So now you also have to double up, so to speak, as being the data analyst or being able to tease these things out. Now, this not only helps you by giving you another tool, but it also puts you in a position of power to be able to say, I made the decisions I made based on these things. I made the decisions I made based on what the data says, and this is why I did what I did. So it actually supports you as a teacher and gives you evidence, or I was, so to speak, some bullets in your gun to be able to say, I did this because of this based on these conversations. All right, so the science of understanding data is very complex. There's no question about it. It's an interdisciplinary thing. And then we have this new field that we call data science. So you see scientific method, we got domain, math, statistics, hacker mindset, visualization. It's a whole lot of different pieces that come into this. So there's no one path for this. So you as a teacher, yes, you definitely qualify to be able to walk into this space, because there's not one place or one path to get there. All right. So what matters the most? So when you start in this place, you have to come with some questions in mind. You have to come in there with your scientific or your science hat on, or as my students say, you want to be nosy. Why are things happening the way they're happening? Why am I seeing what I'm seeing? And you want to ask some questions. So number one, let's talk about prediction. I know many of you are familiar with the EBOS system, right? They take these grades and they see what students are in the third and the third and fifth grade. And based on that model, they feel that they can be able to predict where students are going to be and all these different things. And I actually studied that right much on their prediction models early on myself. So prediction, this is one of the things that people want to know. Why? We always want to know. Think about in terms of the weather. You want to know what the weather's going to be the rest of the week. Why? Because that gives you the opportunity to plan on how you're going to go out and you're going to do whatever it is that you want to do, whether that, spend some social time or family gathering or schoolwork or whatever. If you know it's going to rain the next day, maybe you don't plan to do certain things. Now, does that mean they're 100% correct all the time? No, but it gives you more information so that you can plan ahead. But think about that the same way as a teacher. If you know students come to you with certain issues already, this allows you to be able to plan ahead, to be able to remedy those situations and those problems that that they predicting that they're going to have. Think about classification. So when I think about classification, I think about gender, race, and I know a lot of these classifications now have some blurred lines because of new things that we're coming into and we're coming to understand and know. But these are traditional. Traditionally, you have one that people use all the time is free versus reduced lunch. That's one now that I don't think they use anymore for several reasons, and it's problematic on a number of levels. But those who've been in education a while, we know free and reduced lunch was how they typically talk about students who had versus students who didn't have. Let's talk about recommendations. Do students get promoted or do they get retained? People use this data to support that decision. Where I supported this decision, why? Because students scored this on the end of grade, and we believe the end of grade to be able to, according to our state law, to say that, okay, the student should move on, whether we feel a certain way about it or not. And then sometimes, there are things outside of that, but this may be evidence to support that decision, whether that decision was for in favor of the student or the decision was not in favor of the student. Pattern detection and grouping. Let's think about at risk. So these students, students that are at risk don't necessarily mean that students are, a behavior problem. A lot of times this has been inaccurately pointed to students who have behavior problems. But at risk meaning that the student has some issues here, whether there's some learning disabilities or there's a trend to say, okay, the student's not been traditionally doing well here, which is simply saying to me, pay closer attention to this student. Give this student maybe a little bit more attention in this particular area because we already have documented that they have a tendency to be like this. Don't mean that they always that, but from what we've seen historically, this is what's going to happen. Just like the weather. Historically, it rains on this particular day every year. So there's a good opportunity that it's probably going to rain on that day the next year. Don't mean it's going to happen without certainty, but again, we're forecasting prediction. So remember that we don't want teacher attitudes mean a whole lot when we come into this thing because some people see at risk, they automatically think, oh, this person's a problem. No, they may just have an issue in this particular area that just been documented through the data. Anomalies detection. These are the high and low or outliers, or be honest, you can detect people maybe cheating or there may be some other issues. I've had Sally Sue in my class, and Sally Sue traditionally by the data has been doing well, coming to class, doing this, and all of a sudden she falls off the map. She misses 100 days. She's not turning in work. To me as a teacher, to me as an administrator, I'm looking at that, okay, there's something deeper going on here, which may warrant me to have investigation. But it's easy for me to lose a student like that if I got 200 or 300 people. But when I see it on the data and it just points out, it's a little bit easier to say, okay, something's going on here. Let me investigate here and let me put some of my time and effort in there. Recognition. Here, when I think about recognition, here is your experience. So it's things that you see that you've been doing for a while, and they just kind of, okay, I've seen this before. And since I've seen this before, I already know how to remedy this. So you just go right to that point. Action insights, teach the lesson. Maybe this is something, the data says, okay, my students didn't do well here, and it's more than just an anomaly here. It's scientifically significant, it's statistically significant. So maybe I'll go back and I'll reteach certain sections and I'll reteach all of it because clearly they got this part. Sometimes we as teachers, we saw they didn't get it and I've been there because I've been a classroom teacher and I'm certified and I just started completely over. And I ended up losing the students in the beginning because all he really needed was this one point of when I was talking about asymptote, or this one part when I was talking about the slope point formula in this one specific part where maybe I didn't do a good job, or maybe they were distracted, or maybe something happened. So we can pinpoint those things through the data and be able to say, okay, this is where I need to talk just this piece, then we start completely over. All right, scoring and ranking. So when I think about scoring and ranking, I think about scoring and ranking me versus my peers. That's really what they're saying. How do I stack up against everybody else? I remember when we were in college, and you probably remember too, sometimes you were grateful for that thing called a curve, right? And the curve was what? It was basically based off everybody else. I mean, we all mathematicians in this space. We know there's some struggles. I think about, analysis and those, I had my bouts with those. But, so I was grateful for a curve. So that's me stacking against my peers in that particular room. So when we talk about ranking, most of the time ranking, they're talking about, they saying that this person is 6 out of 800. Well, it's 800 students who look similar to them. Not that they're going to be exactly like them, but when they say 800, they're saying these 800 students have a lot of similar characteristics, and this is what they typically score. This is, they typically do these kind of things. And now this is where this person ranks at within their own group. All right, am I doing okay? I'm going too fast. All right, so segmentation. When I think about segmentation, I want to think about it like this. Assume I had no issue, but how do I rank? So what I mean by that, so sometimes if these students are deemed at risk, they will pull them over here and then they'll rank them within that group. Or if they're looking at, say for instance, a particular race or a particular gender, they will pull those out. So this is them segmenting that data or taking a subpopulation of that data and then looking at those students and how they stack and how they measure up. But they're trying to eliminate certain things. So let's say for instance, if poverty is an issue, we're assuming if poverty is not an issue, what do these students look like? We know it's an issue, but if it wasn't, are they able to score? Because then if that's the case, then we say, okay, what can we do to attack poverty? Because maybe it might not be the instruction at all. I might be doing an awesome job, but the kids are not eating at night. Or the kids don't have access to internet. See, those are problems that you didn't create, but they will affect you as a teacher, and they will affect your scores, and they will affect your school, and they will affect your district. Am I making sense to anybody? Those things, you've done an awesome job, but it's some outside circumstances that is affecting the student's performance. So you may be doing great, but now those are some things you need to be able to go to administrators and address and say, look, I've noticed that these things are happening. And if I put this out, he or she is right there with everybody else. However, now when I put this back in, this is a problem. So now this gives the administrator, and you become a person of authority in the sense that now you can help your administrator help you by being able to go to the LEA and go to your legislators and all these other things who can address these issues that are beyond the classroom. And therefore now the whole society changes and everybody's better. And that's what we all want. All right, so last part, optimization, my best performance. So you hear them often talk about optimization in the space. What does this look like if I'm performing at my best? What does this look like if this is the 1996 Chicago Bulls? What does this look like if this is the Steph Curry Warriors, right? This is when I'm at my absolute best. We hitting on all cylinders. Everybody's playing fair in the sandbox. What does this look like? That's what we all want. Do we always reach optimization? Of course not. But it's always the goal at the end of the day of how can I optimize my performance as a teacher? And how can I also optimize the performance as the students? And then to be on that level, then we both working to our full capacity. All right, so let's talk about the data understanding process. So I wanted to show you this model here. This is called the GAP-DO model, which means goals, acquire, build, optimize, and deliver. As you notice here, it goes back and forth. So basically, you have those goals, those things. Okay, what are my goals with this data set? And you create, just like we normal scientific inquiry, we create hypotheses. Well, I think this is maybe going on. And now you think this is going on, so now you actually go and you test it. So it's just your own curiosity as a teacher. Why is this important? Why is this insightful? You know those students better than anybody else do. You know when Tommy seems like he's falling off, you know to look at that. Why? Because you know him. I, as a researcher, all I know is what you tell me. It's kind of like the doctor situation. When you go to the doctor, if you don't tell him that your knee is hurting, he just doesn't know your knee is hurting. He assumes that everything is fine and that you're just there maybe for your checkup. But you start telling him, Doc, my knee hurt. Then he takes a closer look. Then he says, oh, you have a contusion here. Well, this is a remedy for us to be able to fix that. And then you walk away, hopefully you walk away happy. And then he does too. But remember, even with the doctor, it's called a practice for a reason. Because maybe he gives you something for it and you have a deeper issue. And now you do this thing, go back. Does that make him a bad doctor because he didn't get it? No, he only can give it based on the data that he had, which is what the information you gave him. Hey, doc, my knee hurts. He sees the contusion. Oh, take this aspirin or take this, and it should take care of it. But then you find out what? It's not a contusion. It still hurts. So you go back and do what they do. Then they investigate deeper. And they found out maybe there's some tissue damage and then require surgery, et cetera, et cetera. Well, think about you in the same space. We are what they call practitioners. I know you're not going to always get it right, but our job is to work until we can get to the solution. All right. So, and how did I do that? So, okay, I gave them this remedy. It didn't work. I tried this. It didn't work. That's why the research space and people like myself partnering with you all is so critical. Why? Because you can tell me things that you tried in the space and I can look at them and say, okay, they worked or they didn't work. And if it didn't work, then I can tell you, hey, I found out that it didn't work. You don't have to waste time doing that no more. Because you already know it don't work for this particular situation. But if you had something that did work and we looked at it and we found out that it did work, then that's something that you continue to do. And now that makes you optimize your teaching and you move forward. This is why we have to be more of a partner in this. I know sometimes the academy and then we get to K-12, it's like sometimes now we got this disconnect and that's completely wrong. We need each other to survive in this. I teach teachers how to be math teachers for a living. You all have been my students. So in this space, this is very important to me, and I'm very passionate about this because this is how we get to be better overall. So we start out with these goals, create some hypotheses. Then we get this data. So now the data, for many of you, is already there. It's about learning how to access it or get it from administrators or get it from, I think when I was in school, we used to call it the Sims person. I don't know if that's that person's name anymore, but get it, the data is usually rarely available. But one of the things about data when we get it is it's usually in disarray. It's like finding that nice investment property in the middle of nowhere. It's like, man, it's a nice place, but it's gonna take some work. And that's one of the things that scare people away. So sometimes we have to go in there and clean the data up. We'll talk about that about a little bit. So we'll clean the data up into a point that it's usable to be able to do the things we need to do, right? So from that point, that's when we building. You build and you explore and you're just looking at different things. What does this look like if I do this? What does Billy look like? Well, what does Billy look like against Susie? What does Tom look like against it? What does this test look like? What did they look like when they first came to me versus where they are now? You start doing all these kind of things and start to test and figure these things out. Now, when you get to this point, you're going to make you a presentation, and now you'll be able to say, okay, now based on what I was playing with, these are some of the things I see. And based on these things that I see, me being a good mechanic, I've seen this car leak oil here before, right? So, and I know because I've done this a number of times, it leaks oil here, I need to put this kind of gasket on it, right? People, this is why teachers and mechanics and anybody in any profession, if they've been in it longer, they have a tendency to be better. Why? Because they have more time to mess it up. They have more time to see it. They have more time to get it right. So if you've seen a student do this before, you've probably been through your experience or other experiences, work with other people, you've already learned how to remedy this situation. So now the part is, can I identify it soon enough and be able to do it fast? So I identified the problem through my exploration of the data that I got from the school that we've been collecting for all these years. And now that I identify that problem, I'm looking for solutions. So is that going to Dr. Eley and looking for, or somebody that's another institution or university saying, what do you have for students who have a tendency to do this? That helps me tremendously to be able to help you because I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't write this, but a colleague over at Stanford wrote this, and they said this, this, and this about this situation. And now you're able to read that and remedy your situation right away. So that's where you deliver. And also being able to share that with your colleagues. I believe teaching is a shared space. I'm not in competition with my other teachers. We in this together. So I share this information. I tell teachers all the time, if Ms. Harris is great and has a really great algebra lesson, why is Ms. Gomez asking about it if that's her weakness? That's not a shame. We all have things that we really excel at. Because I mean, clearly you're confident. Why? Because you passed practice 1, you passed practice 2, and you got a license. So we already know you're confident. But do I have some areas that I struggle in? Yes. It's just I do it, but I don't do it as well as her because that's maybe her gift. That's just her thing. So I trade lessons because you know what? I guarantee that's one I got that I'm way better at than she is. And this is when we start to optimize as teachers because I'm starting to find out where I fall short at. And me falling short don't mean I'm bad. It doesn't mean bad at all. But we got to a point that we told people, oh, you got to know everything and be everything to everybody. And I tell people all the time, no, you just got to know how to find it all, right? Just like Miss Prayer found me. This is my space. But there's other things that I would come to you for because that's your space. And I respect that. And we respect each other as colleagues. Then we get along and we get better and we get to that word called optimization. Why? Because now we all improve. My students are better because Ms. Harris had the bomb lesson on that particular part. And I knew I just could not get to them for whatever reason. And I recognize that as a professional, and I'm okay with that. Why do you think your general doctor send you to a specialist? He knows when he's outmatched on certain stuff. But if he cares enough about you, he didn't sit up there and say, oh, go take some aspirin and go home. And you talking about you having heart pain. No, he said, hey, you want to go to the cardiologist down the street. He's a good guy. And he'll take care of you. I want to do it, but I know that's beyond my scope. And I don't want to harm you. Why do not we as teachers have that same attitude? Am I making any sense while I'm preaching to the choir? All right, so let's go. So now you hear this thing of data as continuous improvement. So you'll hear this word over and over and over again. You probably heard Dr. Edmonds saying it. She was my colleague for many years. I was actually working up under her, believe it or not. But she was a math teacher. I was a math teacher up under her. So I paid my dues. Y'all know she got me straight. So in this space, continuous improvement. We got this. What about this? We got this. What about this? So this is what you see here. We make observations, thinking of questions, formulate these hypotheses. I develop tests to test them. Then I test, after I tested, did it work out or not? Then I got it. So you as a teacher, again, remember we call practitioners for a reason. Why? Because we're continually doing this thing. It's you really never get there. It's like fighting a good fight of faith. You continually go, or you never get there. I think about it in terms, since we math people, think about it. You remember when you was learning and understanding limits, and it was that concept of you going there, but you never really get there. You get delta epsilon close, right? And remember, delta epsilon close is what? Half of the half, half of the half, half of the half, half of the half of the half, half of the half. Y'all remember that? So you constantly getting closer, but you never really get there, right? So this is why I think about data as continuous improvement. Yes, I'm getting better in the space. Yes, we're doing this, but do I ever get to a point that I can just stop? No. All right, so now we get to the point we get to shift the goal pan. What I mean shift the goal pan, this is when we get to dig for our data. So I like to think about, I don't know about you, but I watch the Gold Rush sometimes on Discovery Channel. You know, those guys, they get the pan. You know the goods are in there, but you got to work at it a little bit. So what I mean by work, so you shift the gold pan, you shake, and you put a little water under there, that's what they do, and they shake, and they looking for those little pieces of gold. They looking for those little nuggets. Now, when I first started watching the show, I'm like, man, what are they gonna do with all that stuff? That stuff like a cornflake. But what happens is over time, what do? They collect a whole bunch of those cornflakes. And those cornflakes end up here worth millions. They walk around with them in little jars. I always had the impression when I was younger that when they found gold, they found big nuggets and rocks, which is typically not true. That's really an abnormal situation. Do it happen? Yes. But typically they don't. What do? They find a little flake here, a little flake here, a little flake here, but they continue at it. And as they continue at it, all those flakes over time end up to this massive jar that can now be melted down and be one whole piece of gold now. And that's what we as teachers do. You are the one shifting that pan, because you have some students with some gold, they got some gold flakes on them, but they rough. There's a lot of more dirt there than it is gold. I get it, right? But you're looking for that gold part. And you're gonna take that gold part and say, oh, I got this. And then they gonna go to Jessica the next year, and you're like, Jessica, okay, I found this part, and maybe you can shift it a little bit and you find a little bit more. And by the time they get to graduation and you sit back and you know what, you'll find out that every one of you are now a part of that student's success. I'm a part of every one of my teachers' success. Why? Because I remember that one flake about them I found, and I passed it to you, and you looked and you found another flake. And now at the end of the day, we got this whole jar that's walking across the stage, getting their diploma that we're so proud of, that now it's gonna go out and be world changing. Even the ones we didn't think. I was an average student at best, right? But even average, when put in the right environment, can be great. Okay, so hopefully you got a good understanding of what I'm saying here. So what does that shift in the gold pan look like? Gather the school data. It's a 5-step process. Gather school data. Many of you already have it, or you can get to it, or you can pull it out Power School or SchoolNet and all these different places. Process and clean that data. And it just depends on how it comes. We may not be too tough. Summarize that data. Basically, we call it 5-finger summary. You can do all those kind of things. And then we have some basic math statistic techniques that we can show you to be able to bring some things out to light. And then you prepare that for visualization and reports. Hey, Dr. such and such or Principal such and such, I did this because my data in my class said this. That's being a leader in the classroom. That's being a leader in the space. That's being assertive in that space. Why? Because I want my students to do better, because we're in this together. All right. So y'all ready? Here we grow again. It's always about growing in this space. So right now I'm going to switch over to, let's see. I saw that I had anything in the chat here. I saw a chat come up. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's see, new message here. Oh, okay. All right, I think that was it. All right, so let's move on. Trying to get my computer to cooperate here with me. When you're using these Macs, sometimes they get so sophisticated, they get dumb. All right, where we at? Okay. I want to share. All right, do I have any questions or anything before I take another nosedive? Any questions or any comments, concerns? Jessica, I see you talking, and yeah.
I'm muted. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's hard to see right now.
All right, so we pretty much perfect. I mean, my time is perfect. So I want about 30 minutes to give you the background so you can understand where things are coming from and why we're doing what we're doing and the theories behind it. So now that probably makes a lot more sense to you why I'm doing certain things. All right, so here I have a data file that Ms. Prayers so graciously sent to me. I was able to take what she sent and put it together. One of the key things on any of these data files that you always find is you're gonna have to want this to be indexed somehow. Here we have an index. I told her just give me take off student IDs and take off their names and just give me numbers. And she just numbered it 1 through I think 208 or something like that. I think it's what I actually have here. And hopefully everybody can see my screen. So yeah, it's 208 here that she sent me, and was able to put that file together. In your case, you always want at least a number to front. Most of the time, you probably just use their student ID number. I think you all can get away with that. Just using that student ID number because you are the teacher, but me being a researcher, I don't need that kind of detailed information. All right. Okay, it's in my screen. Did it stop sharing? The screen paused.
Ms. Harris, try what worked for me is I kind of I slid over so I didn't see everyone's face. That helped a little with seeing some of the font, but it is kind of small.
Okay, I can bring this up a little bit. Is that better? Okay. Yeah, y'all gotta talk back to me. I don't know if you're gonna tell me. All right. So here, like I said, this will be a student ID number for you. So you want to be able to index this somehow. And that's important, whether you use the names or not. But if you have the student ID number, you can go back and barely identify them because the computer needs to number this. So this is some data that Justin gave me. It's not in any particular order. We have some scale scores. I guess she can share with you all what data this is. So I did not change this. This is the raw, and I put all the files to get the file all together. So it's just this one is. So let's say if it's a student 1 here, we just follow this student 1 all the way across. And all these different things across the top obviously need things for you that I don't know, and this is why I would need you. But this is why this would also be more meaningful to you because you will understand what all these things mean. As it relates to your classroom and your students. Some of this stuff, obviously, I do like attendance, but some of it I wouldn't. All right, so first step, get the data. Well, I got the data here. This is your EC middle school data. So step 1 is already taken care of. Step 2 is to clean that down. Now, typically, say for instance, in a file like this, what they mean by clean is this file, we cannot have anything missing. We cannot have missing line items because that throws it off. So what you will find is that some students, you're not gonna be able to calculate the way that you want to be able to calculate, and they'll be missing in certain spaces. Why? Because their data file is incomplete. So you always hear garbage in, garbage out. That's where that comes from. Because if you give me bad data, I'm gonna give you bad analysis. My analysis only can be as good as the data I have. So think about it in terms of cooking. If I start out with materials, if I start out with food that's rotten, you're gonna get a bad meal. I mean, there's no way around it, right? So that's the same thing here. So let's, get the very best data we can, including the best way we can. On something like this, the easiest way to do something like this is, on this, I typically just select the whole thing. And, you can select in the corner if you have any experience with Excel and go to, I just go to filter and sort. And I just hit filter. All right, so when I hit filter, what this does, if I have my line, if I have my headers across there, it'll allow me to see everything here, like this. So the first thing I would do in this one is scale score, right? I unselect them. So now they all unselected. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. There you'll see is blanks. Select blanks. Now it just showed me all the blank scale scores I got, right? Y'all with me? I just simply go in here and I take these. I copy these here because these are the ones that are missing. If you notice they're in blue. So there's some other ones here that are missing also. Okay. And then I just simply right click it and I say delete. Boom, gone. All right. Now, if you notice here, there's a little funnel there, but that's telling you where I got the filter on. So now I have all of those. So now I go back in here. I just hit select all, and they all back. But except the ones I just deleted out. So I just deleted out all the ones who don't have scale scores. Well, I know this one got a whole bunch of missing ones, so I'm not gonna do that. All right, so let's go this overall placement. Same thing here, because they're missing pieces all the way across. Where here, this one's not missing anything. Everybody here that's on here has a placement score. Great. So I select that and I go again. And I do this for every single one until I get all the way across my data. See, all those are there. I leave that alone. Let's see. All right, this is the annual growth, typical growth. Those are all there. So don't assume that they all are there. You do want to check them, because as I was going through this, preparing for you all today, I was almost made that mistake, and then I got to a point and one of them didn't have it. So I always just, like I said, it's quick to scroll all the way down to the bottom. If it's a blank, it'll say at the bottom. Trying to think which one of these have a blank. I think it's this one right on. See right there? So I would have missed that, right? So here, select all, undo that, go down here, just give me the blanks. Now look, now you're looking at, oh man, I'm gonna miss all this data. Well, if you don't take it out, it's gonna ruin your analysis because you got gaps. So that means you're putting zeros in places where they're not zeros. And we already know as mathematicians what zero does, the averages and numbers and stuff, it just throws it off completely. And then we're looking at things that we talk about are outliers, which may not be outliers at all. So here again, you see all the ones that are blue on the side there, same deal here. And then I just hit delete the rows. I thought I hit delete all, I'm sorry. I want to delete all of these. All of those that I have highlighted. Okay, there you go. All right, and then I just go back here. And like I said, you would do that all the way across. So I'm not gonna, belabor our point because I want to show you the other things. But you just keep doing that all the way across. This is you cleaning the data. So you hear most people say they spend more time cleaning the data than they do anything else, and that's true. All right, so the second purpose of this presentation, I've already done that. Okay, so now this is my clean data set. I'm gonna bring this up for you here again. Sorry about the smaller font. So this data set is pretty much exactly what you saw over there, but it's clean. But I want you to notice something. My original data set was 208. I showed you that in the beginning. After cleaning it, I only have 161 pieces of data that I actually can use. Okay? So this is like, as I put it, and I talk a lot of metaphors, so I'm just a good old country boy. This is like catching that fish. You don't eat all the fish. It's parts of the fish that you just don't eat. And when you clean the data, this is pretty much what this is. This is gutting and cleaning the fish. And now you're preparing it for that meal. So the reason it's 161, remember that first row is heaven. So I can read that off here easy. All right, so now the data is done. That's clean. Now the part you probably be ready for. All right, so let's summarize this a little bit. So on the summary side here, one of the things I would do here is I would just select the whole thing. And then I would go over to, where's it down? Yeah, where you at? Insert. All right, so I'll go over to insert. I have my whole array of data selected. So what I'm telling the computer here to do is consider all of this. And I can start out with a pivot table or recommended pivot table. I always start out with recommended because sometimes recommended, the AI and the computer will give you a lot of pretty good stuff. And being like I said, you're new to this, you probably want to start out there. So I hit recommended. All right, so here it's giving me some recommended things already. All right, so let me bring this up for you here, make this a little better. All right, so what we're looking at here, what the computer automatically did for me here was give me, let me readjust mine here. I can't see my screen on the side. It gave me overall placement and the overall placement versus the relative placement. And then they summed those out. So one of the things here, you'll see like you have the little I button over here on the side. I wouldn't close this. This allows you to manipulate the data and do all kinds of things you want to do with it. The little I button here, those are sums. I want to change those sums to my counts because I want it to count. I don't want it to add it up. So I change those to my count. So now you see that transform the data. 161. Remember that was the number I told you we had to begin with. So here I'm checking to make sure I'm looking at what I think I'm looking at. So now I already have some things here that I can just examine this table here and say, okay, I see some things that already stick out. That's sixth grade there. They are at one grade level below. 58 sixth graders are at one level or below. Well, maybe I don't see that in this particular table because it didn't stand out that well when you're looking at a table like this because the way this is set up. Also, you can click here and you can aggregate the data here. So in this case, I don't want any blanks in there. So I just take those out and that shows that table a little bit. And remember, you can always see the filter on there. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this because I need a better visualization of this. I'm going to select this and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select pivot chart. Now, pivot chart just dropped me a chart there of that same data that is put on an XY plane, right? Now, just looking at that, does this say some things to you? I give you a chance to examine it.
Can you make it a little larger?
Sure, that's what I'm going for. Is that better?
Yes.
So if I'm just looking at this straight out, it's already clearly this stands out, right? So it's one grade level below. Well, who's one grade level below? Sixth grade. Now, me being a teacher in that school, and maybe I teach sixth grade, I already probably felt that way. But now I have the data to support what I was thinking anyway. So they stand out. Next group stand out is the seventh grade. Well, does that maybe make sense to me? Maybe it do or maybe it don't. Maybe I'm looking at it and say, okay, we having problems in our sixth grade population, it just didn't go away overnight, right? So it carries over a little bit to the seventh grade. But but most of these seventh grades here, what they are on grade, let's say on grade or above level, and then here what two or more grade levels below. So you notice that the sixth grade stands out as an anomaly because they have a larger number. But if you look overall, based on this data here, no one's doing that well except the seventh grade. At least that's seventh grade and pretty much ninth grade. And at least that's what I can interpret on my limited knowledge of what you all are doing there. So this is where you will become the expert in the space because this will mean more to you than it would to me. Because all I'm looking at is numbers on the page, and me as a researcher, I'm looking at this as like, ooh, sixth grade, and everybody else, ooh, 9th, 10th, maybe, but the numbers ain't particularly high based on what I have here. But there's clearly something going on because most of the kids overall are not doing well. Now you might be able to explain that, and that's important. Think about it like this. I was always been told this. People want to see the numbers first, and if the numbers are compelling, then they'll listen to the story. Does that make sense? People want to see the numbers first, and if the numbers are compelling, they'll listen to the story. So if I brought this to my principal and say, we got an issue in sixth grade, I got to show him up here, him or her, look at these numbers. We got some issues over here. And then it's like, well, what do you think? Glad you asked. Well, I've noticed these kind of things, or some of these students, for some reason, a large number of sixth graders have this kind of issue, or this happened, or they might have had a teacher. They didn't have a teacher. I mean, we're finding that out a lot, right? That some students are coming from school, they just not had they had the resources, but they could not get a person in there who was certified to teach a student. So they went through self for the whole year. And you inherited that whole population from that elementary school, and it made your number come up like that. So now you spend a lot of time reteaching things, concepts and objectives that they should have covered or gotten in the fifth grade that they didn't. And now that affects you as a teacher. Why? Because you're asked to do the sixth grade competencies, and you cannot do sixth grade competencies because you got to teach fifth, fourth, and third. Well, why you got to teach fifth, fourth, and third? Not because the students weren't trying to be excellent in the space, that they didn't have a teacher who knew what they were doing. They had somebody's mom who was doing the very best she could, but she was a substitute at best. She wasn't a professional teacher. You see how our problems become systemic. But I need to identify this because I don't want them coming down to me as a teacher saying, bad Peter, you're not doing your job. And I'm thinking, man, I'm working like hell. What you talking about? I got them to go from third grade stuff. They can actually multiply now. I know they ain't doing fractions, but dude, they can multiply. And they couldn't add before they got to me. So you killing it. But that's why we need to be able to look at that space, and you be able to have the data too to say, okay, when they came to me, he couldn't add, he couldn't do this, he got these diagnostics, these are your, remember, you always want to use the standardized items if you can. Use their stuff. Hey, they couldn't add, he couldn't subtract. Your test told me that he couldn't do it. I worked with him all year, and now we give him your test again, and he passes your test. No, he ain't passed the 6th grade test. I get it. But look where he was and look where he is now. That helps you as a teacher. Because we know you're doing a phenomenal job. But I'm telling you, you got to be able to prove it. You know, I was at the UNC system office for a while as a fellow, and I was there when Margaret Spillers was there. And we all know she used to be the United States Secretary of Education. And one of the first things I remember her ever saying come out of her mouth is, saying, I trust in God, but I believe in data more. So she said, and the money saying, God, we trust you. She said, everybody else bring that. So we know what you're saying is true, but you're going to have to be able to support your argument when this time comes. Because you're already doing amazing work. You're getting these kids to go to a high level, but is it absurd or almost, I didn't say it's impossible, but it's a large task to get a kid to go from 3 to 5 when you're supposed to have them at 6. And if you got them to go from 3 to 5, you did wonderful. But I know that the test only measures what? Did they pass 6 when they were with you? Because they said that's what they asked you to do. But I'm telling you, okay, I can't because they don't know all these things. And that's why math is one of those things. We know it's hierarchical in nature that if they can't add, I can't expect them to subtract. If they can't subtract, I can't expect them to go on and learn, multiplication and division. And then what happens is they learn it in pieces and they never get all, right? And we know that. And then we get this hodgepodge of things coming to us. So this right here is just one example. All right, let's talk about how you can just start, to play around with this. So if you notice here on the side, everything that was in that table is right here. And I can start changing these in real time and start looking at some things. So for the sake of time, I took the liberty to do a couple of them for you. All right, so here's one. This is one. Let me zoom these in for you. I think this is the same one I looked at with, no, that's something because I didn't change that. So the fourth part is massaging the data. So you can change the colors on all these charts and all this kind of stuff. And you can learn how to do that later. But these are the most important things. So here, this one right here, I looked at, grade levels, where they were above and beneath the level. So this is that same chart we just saw. That's that first one. This one's one I dug a little deeper. Here I have drop downs. So here I'm looking at the different, you click on it, it'll tell me. And when you click on it, it'll tell you over here, I'm looking at the annual typical growth and the annual stretch growth. They're on my my y-axis here. No, sorry, they're my rows. Yeah, they're my rows here. And my columns going across is going to be the relative placement. So you see here, we can look at the relative placement. So you can see it. Now, the 23, the 10, the 20, 22 mean nothing to me, but you know what they mean. And then you can start to interpret this data accordingly. So you see here, we have the different charts. So on grade level, here in blue, and then one grade above, and then 2 or more grade levels below. And you can see how those students measure up who fall into those different categories. You all know what those categories mean. So remember, when you're working with the data, you're going to be initially just all numbers. And then when you start to go to the point where you're about to make a narrative or to make an argument, you're going to be able to take these numbers and now transform these to words. So 22 might mean, I'm just throwing out, 22 might mean that students here don't add well. And you can show here, 22, this is where our students, these are the number of students who are on grade level we're adding, and I'm just making this up. And these are the students who are one level below that, and these are the students who are well below that. If I was using that 22 man add. Am I making sense to anybody? Yes, no?
Can
Maybe
you
so.
share the, Dr. Eley, did you do one for attendance? Because that's a huge factor.
Do one for
that
what?
we want to attendance.
Yeah, so I think I did, here it is right here. Yep, I already was on front of you. So here I did attendance here. And remember I told you can click on here. Oh, wait, no, let me see. My computer, yeah, I'm kind of stuck there. Let me keep this in a little bit so I can see it. Remember I was telling you over here in the corner, you can click here. So when you click here, remember you can change these different counts. So I changed the count on, am I on the chart? Yeah, okay, now I'm on the chart. So I clicked this count here and I wanted to see the average. Because when I just did the count, of course, these numbers were absurd, right? So you see how they change in real time. So you can see the students who are on or above grade level according to this count, right? So here's the different breakout by, I think this is their placement, where they place versus where they are on grade level, their attendance, okay? So you see here, we have some really high attendance numbers here. So these students in this category 13 are 2 or more grade levels below, and they miss about 60 days. Now that doesn't make sense to me, right? Because it's just an average of, a count of those days. So I really wanted to look at the average of those days. So here I go back on the right-hand side where it says, you see the sigma X, where it says values, click on that I, and like I said, make that an average. So now it shows me the average attendance. So now this makes a little more sense. So out of those 40, so out of these students here, we go over here, we're looking at a count here of these 32 students that fall into these categories. The average attendance for students who fall in category 12, they've missed about 6 days on average. The students who are in category 11 missed about 3 days. Because remember, we count the days they actually missed. We put them in the system. So these are not days of attendance. These are actually the days that they missed. So make sure that we understand and interpret what we put in. Does that make sense? All right, so here they, on average, they missed about 3.7 days, and then the students here missed about 4.5. But one thing I did notice right here is only 2 students here. So be careful that, obviously 2 would give us, but this would give us a better indication of what's going on here with 26, but we only got 32 out of this whole group anyway. Okay, and then here, that was really for what? The students are on what? 1 grade, on or above grade level. Then you have the students who are on grade level or below. Well, I got another group of them here. They miss about 5 days on average. Now, the students who are in this group here, this is a little bit better, but look, they miss on average about 8 days. So, right, attendance is the issue. So we look at it overall, on average, students who fall in category was that 13 miss almost 8 days. And if you notice here, the ones who missed 8 days, on average, they're great. They were on or above grade level. Well, that doesn't make sense to me, right? Because I'm thinking if they on grade level, why are they missing so many days? But that goes back here because you got to notice it ain't with 2 here, so that does affect that. So this is why you want to make sure you go back and look at certain things. So if I'm looking at this analysis just based off the data I got, because I only can work with what I got, right? I would be careful about making some assumptions here because I only have 2. But this group here, I feel a lot better about making assumptions about. I don't know if you can see my mouse going around there or not at 12. So I feel a lot better about making assumptions at 12 than I would at 13 and at 13 because of just the number of data points I have to work with. And I know and I understand from my expertise, and you understand from your expertise, knowing averages that how 1 or 2 numbers can really affect it if the number of cases is small. Am I making sense to anybody? So this is one of these things that I can't use the data to conclusively make some decisions because I need more numbers. But here I feel a little bit better about making some decisions because I can see this, and this is still significant because this is about five days. And those students who miss about 5 days on average are what? 1 grade level below. We have about 40 students who are falling into that category. So I got about 40 students who are 1 grade level below, but they also on average miss 5 days. Now, this is with me as a researcher, I might dig into why they're missing 5 days. Are these kids who stay suspended a lot? Are these kids who have issues at the home? It can be in something. Are these kids who have medical issues? It can be in a number of things, but that's where you have to dig a little bit deeper to say, okay, what's going on here? Or this is something that you bring to the administrator's attention, and maybe they can do a little bit more digging and say, okay, we know what this is, and let's see if we can remedy this, because if we can remedy this, we think we can get this to come down. And again, remember, all this is what? Practitioner space. Some of these things we know definitively, but a lot of these things are very situational. Some of the things that work in Elizabeth City will not work in Guilford County. Some of the things that work well in Gifford County, just not going to cut it in Elizabeth City. So again, this is why it's important that you as teachers be able to analyze your own stuff and be able to bring in your own level of expertise. And all of you all are mathematicians by default because you're math teachers. And if you notice here, I ain't done nothing that was really crazily hard. It was just that, understanding what some things were and being able to manipulate some data. So I encourage you, go out there and build your own, play with it. All kinds of things. There are all kinds of videos out there on YouTube and other things that will help you to start that analysis. And I'm going to make myself available to you to be able to help discuss that. Again, I want this to be a collaborative space because I learn from you all just as much as you all learn from me. I have time to deal with this, but you all are in the classroom and you see things that I don't see. That may be new, that may be interesting to both of us, that we can come together and come with a common solution to be able to help all students, not just your students, be able to help all and put that in a paper somewhere or something. And then somebody in Texas who found they had a similar issue are now able to help their students. Why? Because of a rural county in North Carolina who documented some of their successes and failures. And that's what research is. You ain't always get it right, and that's okay, because now I know what not to do. But then the times I don't get it right, I need to tell people about that too, because that keeps them from making mistakes. We call it standing on the shoulders of giants. So here I just put that, like I said, me just massaging the data here. I did a couple other things here, just like I said, just playing around. Like I said, again, a lot of these things, don't mean nothing to me. But if I was, if I sat down with Jessica, she said, "Hey, look at this," then she would be like, "Oh, you know what? That makes sense because of this, this, and this." And this is why, at some point and at some level, it's important that you know this. Why? Because you can bring these things to light that I could. So last piece, I would tell you, hey, this is when you get to make your choice and you get to go tell it. Go tell your story. The last part is go tell it. So, this is where I take over to Dr. Edmonds and say, hey, look, these are some issues I'm noticing we have. And this is what's happening. Uh-oh, did I lose it? This is what's happening in my space. And I noticed that these kids here, we got a pretty good data set that tells us that these kids here are not coming to school, and they're not coming to school, they are one grade level below. And I feel pretty confident about it. So what can we do about this truancy issue? Is it a truancy issue because of this or that, or whatever the case may be? Because the situation may very well lie with outside of your classroom, but you are being affected by it. So that's my time. Thank you. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope this has been insightful. I hope this has also been inspiring. That, hey, it gets you interested. Like, let me dig a little deeper when I have some time to look at some things and how can I support students and how I can support you in this space. That's my time, and I'll give that back over to Jessica at this time. Thank you. Did Jessica go away?
Yes, thank you very much. I think she had to jump into another meeting that started a minute ago.